Hello everyone and welcome back to IMO Reviews. We have got quite a fair few movie reviews to catch up with, so let's dive straight in. Starting with Kneecap. Kneecap tells the story of a genuine Irish hip-hop band of the same name, discussing the importance of the Irish language and its expression through music. I think it's important for me to mention before I dissect this movie, I have zero skin in the game and I have no political interest on either side here. I am just a movie critic looking at the film for what it is. And I must admit, I've never heard of this band. I don't know how popular they are over in Ireland. I have looked at their YouTube channel. I mean, they're doing a lot better than me, but I wouldn't say they're crushing the game right now. And yet this movie acts as if they are the messiahs of the hip-hop game. Yes, that's right, I really struggled to get on with this movie if I'm being honest with you. It comes across so juvenile and childish at almost every single turn, portraying the doldrums of underage drug abuse and alcoholism as if it's the greatest thing you could possibly do with your life. The movie doesn't know what it wants to be or what it wants to say. On one hand, it's proud of its Irish heritage, but on the other hand, it's more proud of the fact that it's basically a chav in sheep's clothing. It also wants to discuss the IRA and the ripple effects that it's had on the country, but equally it's also going to play it off as a one big massive joke. But above all else, it's going to smash home the importance of you, the audience, checking out what I personally feel is a very bang average hip-hop act. It's moves like this that create the term industry plant, because I'd never heard of this act and suddenly they're the biggest thing in Ireland overnight and have their own movie. So important in fact that Michael Fassbender, who plays one of the leaders of the IRA, actually tells one of the rappers from Kneecap that they are the bullet that will save this country. Jesus Christ, we've lost them. They have gone too far up their own arsehole. There is no coming back from that. Sure, it's got the odd moment that's chuckle-worthy and some of the cinematography and editing does feel quite lively, with a real energy and light-hearted pace to it all, and yet it also feels so childish, meaningless, and arrogant, frankly. I wanted to like it, but truth be told, the best score I could give Kneecap is a 3 out of 10. Next up, it's Rebel Ridge on Netflix. Rebel Ridge tells the story of an ex-military man who is posting bail for his brother in prison, only for him to be violated by some corrupt policeman. And now it's time for him to get some revenge. And yes, it really is as generic as it sounds. Rebel Ridge is the definition of a dad movie. There are tons of plot holes, it's really cheesy, it doesn't make an awful lot of sense, but there's some kick-ass action, it's got a really smooth running time, and you just know for a fact your old man's gonna love it. That's Rebel Ridge. And while I'm sticking with the compliments, it must be said I quite enjoyed the performances here, and that is quite surprising to me. Maybe it's just me, but I thought Don Johnson acted his arse off in this movie. It's almost as if he thought he was performing the works of Shakespeare while everybody else knew this was just a dad movie on Netflix. And that isn't a negative. I'm really glad to see Don Johnson back really giving it some on the big screen. It really is a movie that does what it says on the tin. If you want a cheap, easy, throwaway action movie that you can go on your phone occasionally through, this is the one for you. But if you're after something that's a little bit more weighty, meaningful, thought-provoking and challenging, then I'm afraid this ain't it, Chief. And personally, I found myself somewhere in the middle. I think there are as many good things about this movie as there are bad things. I've seen worse action, but it could be a lot better. I've seen way worse cinematography, but it could be a lot better. It's a very serviceable movie, and it does what it says on the tin. And for that, I can't be mad at it. Netflix is exactly where it belongs. And I'm going to give Rebel Ridge a 5 out of 10. Next up is Sing Sing, which tells the true story of inmates from Sing Sing Penitentiary as they participate in a program called Rehabilitation Through Acting. Sing Sing is a lovely movie with its heart firmly in the right place. I love the fact that they got the real people to play the roles of these characters. It brought a whole new depth to the story, not only knowing that the person performing the role is probably telling you something they really experienced, but also what a great performer they have become by participating in the program. I like how the movie explores the emotions of these characters, because most of them are just normal, everyday people like you and I who have made terrible mistakes in the past and deeply regret them. It's got a real nice tone to it. I do like the sense of humour it's got as well. It did offer a needed levity at times. Sing Sing is definitely one of the most refreshing and memorable films I've seen this year, but it doesn't go without problems, I'm afraid. I do think that the film could easily have explored prison life a bit further. We are far too focused on the program and the program alone, and I can understand why, but I think it would have helped understand what a release acting is for them if we saw how bad it was outside of the program. In fact, we see so little of the dark side that it almost makes prison feel quite easy, and I'm pretty sure it ain't. It feels far too easy and breezy, and everyone's very friendly. And I'm sure these people are very nice, especially with their rehabilitation program, but let's not lie to each other, prison is not a very nice place to be. And unfortunately, on that note, I think it does spread throughout the movie that there is something just a little bit too fantastical about it all. It's almost overly optimistic, if you will. Maybe that says more about me than the film. Even when they showed me the true footage at the end, I still walked away from it feeling like it had an element of fiction to it. It just seems a little bit too clean and cookie cutter to be reality for me. But apart from that, I still thoroughly enjoyed this movie and highly recommend you check it out. I'm gonna give Sing Sing an 8 out of 10. Next up, it's Afraid. Afraid tells the story of a family who get an AI helping home robot, I suppose, called Aya. And as the most generic horror movie of the year, it goes exactly where you think it's going. I almost don't even want to talk about this one. It is just so pointless. If you've ever seen a story about brilliant technology going wrong, then you've already seen this movie. It offers nothing new, it has no interesting ideas to present, it doesn't sweep the carpet out from under your feet and take you in a completely new direction. No, no, and no. Cash grab if ever there was one. Made by suits in a boardroom as they flick through the hashtags on Twitter to see what's trending. And I guess the week they were writing this script, it just so happened to be AI. It's poorly made, it's poorly acted. I don't think I have a single redeeming thing to say about this movie. I mean, I don't think this really is a positive, but I guess it works. At least I'm not angry at the movie. It was so generically boring that rather than get angry at it, I just almost instantaneously forgot it. People, don't waste your time, money, and effort on this. You deserve better. Allow my suffering to be the final warning. And you already guessed it. Afraid gets a 1 out of 10. Speaking of crap, let's move on to Poolman. Oh boy, what the hell was this? For those of you who don't know, Chris Pine is in his Tommy Wiseau era where he's now writing, acting and directing in his own movies. And here we are with Poolman, where he plays a guy who cleans pools and thinks he's uncovered some crazy government conspiracy. And apparently it's a comedy, although it's just painfully unfunny. I don't know what this was. It just reeks of ego and vanity and madness. Chris Pine might be a pretty decent actor, but director and writer, he is not. The story is just nonsensical. It seems to be the ramblings of a drunk in the park. It's not very cohesive. None of it really fits together or ends up going anywhere that satisfying in the end. All of the characters are just whiny and irritating and annoying and shouting at each other or over each other, and I think this is Chris Pine trying to be funny. It's just annoying. Gave me a damn near headache. The only reason this movie seems to exist is to stroke Chris Pine's ego. It is a very strange watch. Poolman gets a 1 out of 10. And finally, it's Transformers 1. Now I must admit, I've never really cared about the Transformers. Even when I was a kid, I was way more into Biker Mice from Mars and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I've always thought they were just fine. I'd watch them if they were there, but I wasn't going out my way for it or buying the toys. And if there was any chance of me ever getting into this franchise, well, Michael Bay very quickly killed that off with his trilogy of films. And I must admit, the trailer to Transformers 1 didn't exactly leave me feeling like the tide was going to turn anytime soon. I wouldn't even say the trailer was childish, it damn near came off babyish at times. But as a film critic, I did my duty and I sat on those front lines and I watched Transformers 1, and something incredible happened. I damn well liked it. Yeah, that's right. I don't know if I maybe fell over and banged my head and it was all a big fever dream, but I actually liked Transformers 1. Heck, I don't just like Transformers 1. This is my favourite Transformers movie. It's easily the best one by far. Let's start with the positives. I thought the animation style was cool. It took a minute for me to get used to it. It's a little bit different, but ultimately I thought it really worked, especially as the film went on. With the jagged edges of these characters, it managed to do something really clever with the shininess of their metal and the lighting and the shading, which all really stood out, especially in the action scenes. I also really enjoyed the imagination and some of the new ideas that they brought to Transformers to flesh it out. Maybe this is absolute sacrilege if you're a Transformers fan, but as somebody who doesn't have any skin in the game, I liked it. I thought it was refreshing. I gotta give them props on the characters as well. The main two guys, I really liked them. I like the fact they put the groundwork in. They don't just tell you they're friends, you actually see them as friends, behaving as friends, and you watch their relationship change and grow as the movie goes on. This is what you're meant to do. It's like writers have forgotten this. I shouldn't be saying this, but God, it was refreshing to watch a character have an arc. And it's in an animated kids movie called Transformers 1. It's got a really smooth runtime, and I think there's something in this movie for all to enjoy, not just the kids or just the boys. If there are any negatives, sure. Sometimes it falls into some cliches and formulaic traps, but to be honest, at least they fall into the cliches and traps that we know work. And I suppose another complaint is that the humour can be really hit and miss. Nothing had me laughing out loud, but a few lines got a smirk out of me, whilst a few others just left a tumbleweed passing by. It's not a perfect movie, and it's not trying to be. But considering that god-awful Rise of the Beast movie that we watched a few years back and how terrible that was and how they still hadn't learned any lessons and focused solely on the humans with terrible over-the-top clunky CGI, I found it so damn refreshing to be put in a completely new environment with a much cleaner, fresher and more vibrant animation style where I actually got to spend time with the Transformers, not a bunch of human beings that I don't care about. I'm going to give Transformers 1 a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching this movie review catch up. Please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and please do hit the comment section as well. Have you seen any of the movies we've discussed today? What do you think about them? Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you haven't had enough of this crazy ginger, we can always click on these suggested videos right here and get yourself lost in an IMO wormhole. But if not, take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.